You mentioned guides, I believe, and I think it's just so important that, well, and the story that you told about the pledge with the gentleman, and seeing that every day, and he, really was introduced to that at a younger age, and the importance of having these conversations with children in schools and really opening up that arena for them to have these discussions. So I know that Not in Our Town, they also have these program guides and resource kits for schools that want to engage in this work. So is there a cost that's associated with either of these, and what do they entail?
So, first of all, you could go into Not in Our Town and go into the Not in Our School site, and you can find free resources and guides.
Awesome.
There's not a paywall behind a lot of this. Some material is costs money, and there are, for example, there's a video action kit that teachers can use, and there's an identity safe school program, right? So one of the things that we emphasize for schools is that every child needs to walk into a school feeling safe in their own identity and who they are, right? And that's a big problem, and it needs a significant attention. So, but you can begin, right? You can begin with those videos, those actions. And I think one thing that we've learned over this time is we look at how to stop hate, racism, and bullying in a school. The young people in a school are the ones who are going to change things. And the adults need to find a way to give them that frame and that opportunity for them to make a difference peer to peer, right? And the community becomes a really vital player in reinforcing that messaging. And so there's a group of parents on Long Island who I think are tremendous. They're young parents, and they saw swastikas on the school property of one of their middle schools. And they said, we've got to get ahead of this. And so, there was some institutional response from the schools, but it was the parents who took it on and say, how can we start to do something? And they formed a Not in Our Town group. And they wanted to send a message to their children and their community. It's like, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. And I think we can't ask our kids to do the work if we're not ready to do it ourselves, right? We can't, so the kids, the young people of our community go to school and maybe they learn, how to stand up against bigotry and hate and bullying. And then they come home and they see it in their family or they see it in the community. And the cycle doesn't end. And so parents play such a tremendous role. So maybe, and this is true in many places, you don't have a school district that's necessarily cooperative. The parents start doing something, and quite often the schools come around and they organize in different ways, right? And you start getting the mayor involved and city council, and you start, you call up the police chief and say, hey, we're a group of parents and we're really concerned about this and we want you to join us and send a message that, every child, every person in our town needs to feel safe. So schools are an essential part of our community. It's the place where, it's one of the few places. I was talking to a woman from Los Angeles, a leader in civics, and she was saying, in LA, we're like this international city, but there are very few ways for us to interact. We're always in our cars. And I find that schools are one of the few places left where parents are together with their kids. It's the soccer practice. It's the, PTA meetings. It's we're going to those meetings with teachers and we see each other and there are play dates. There are all those things. They are central to community. And so parents become, and it's quite often that parents formed Not in Our Town groups because they didn't want their kids to grow up in a town that was hateful.
Yeah. Well, and can you tell me, I don't know if you have any statistics or data, or at least if you could speak to some of the benefits that you see in terms of school climates and bullying for these schools that participate in the Not in Our Town programming?
Well, it's, so doing these long-term studies is really hard. one of the leaders of Not in Our School did some long-term training with Carmel School District, and they saw their bullying reduced by 40%, right, which is significant in the school. And so I think when you pay attention, when you say every child needs to be safe in their identity, and all of our staff is going to be trained in this, and we are going to give our young people the opportunity to lead and help support them as they reach out to each other, you're going to reduce bullying and hate. You're going to make a change. And so I think, there are multiple ways you can do that, but that messaging, I think the messaging that we try to share, there are lots of different curriculums. There's this group called Facing History and Ourselves that has a much more advanced curriculum about these issues. But I would suggest that people look at Not in Our School and what we're trying to do, and think about how you can introduce them. Even if you start with the PTA, start with the parents, right? Because the parents can have a huge influence on the kids and eventually influence the district. So we're starting more workshops starting in the fall. In the aftermath of, the election year has been really difficult, and the rise in hate groups. It's been a lot of call on our organizations, and we haven't done as much work in schools as we'd like to. But we're starting to build regional training again. So, but it won't be until the fall.
Okay.